Hello everyone. Today we are going to discuss Alice Walker's novel Meridian. So Alice Walker, she is an American novelist, short story writer, poet, and a socially committed activist. She is the first Afro-American woman to win the Pulitzer Prize for fiction. It was for her work The Color Purple. It's a very popular work of fiction that actually depicts varied horrifying experiences, black experiences in the US. She is also credited with the term womanism. Alice Walker was the first to use the term womanism. She used the word womanist in a short story called Coming Apart in 1979. She referred to womanism or womanist to encompass the varied perspectives on the issues faced by Black women. Later on, this term was interpreted and redefined by many theorists and critics, but she is actually entitled with the coinage of the term womanist. And we often refer to the differences between womanism and feminism, where womanism is the comprehensive uh, term to encapsulate all the sufferings of women, especially Black women. So it universalizes the issues of women in a way. And Alice Walker, she called herself a womanist in all her works, in every activity that she does. She strived to free women from all sorts of oppression. She refers to the various realms of uh, oppression, including the racial, the patriarchal, or the gender issues, domestic violence, sexual abuse that a woman faces. And Meridian is her second novel. It's actually published in 1976 with a setting in the 1960s of the US, where we have Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, and Atlanta Saxon College that comes as settings. This novel is actually referred to as Alice Walker's meditation on the modern civil rights movement. So we get to know it's at the backdrop of modern civil rights movement that the novel is set. So what is civil rights movement? Civil rights movement was a nonviolent social movement in the US and America that happened between the 50s and 70s, to be precise, between 54 and 68, 1954 and 1968. And this was a protest against the racial discrimination against the black people, the disenfranchisement. That is, the black people, even though slavery was abolished and many of the rights were given to them after various amendment acts, they were not given the right to vote. So it was to gain the voting rights that the civil rights movement aimed at. So Afro Americans were still subjected to violence and discrimination. So it was during the 1950s and 70s that the civil rights movement was at its peak. And this novel is often referred to as a Bildungsroman. Bildungsroman is a literary genre where we find the growth of the character of the protagonist, the formative years of the protagonist. We have Meridian Hill as the protagonist of this novel. That is why the name Meridian. Okay. So it's actually the development of the character of Meridian from her young age to the adulthood. She is a young black woman and it's her coming of age story. And at the beginning of the novel itself, we get to know that Alice Walker has given many dictionary meanings of the word meridian. You could see how the term meridian is there in geography and astronomy, the literal meaning of the term. So meridian, it means the highest apparent point reached by heavenly body in its course. It could also mean the highest point of power, prosperity, splendor. It could mean the middle period of one's life. In astronomy, it means the imaginary great circle of the celestial sphere passing through the poles of the heavens and zenith and nadir of any given point. In geography, it has yet another meaning. So it also means a place or situation with its own distinctive character. So the term meridian, uh, we can attribute almost all these meanings to the main character. Meridian Hill. One way or the other, she gets through all her, she gets over all her sufferings and reaches a point of power where she discovers herself. It could be her highest point of power, could be her highest point reached by her body. Mm. It could also mean her situation plays her own identity with unique or distinct character. So almost all the meanings can be attributed to the protagonist Meridian Hill. So coming to the story, though it is a story of Meridian Hill, a young black woman, we have the other two main characters, Truman, Held, and Lynn. What is common among all the three? Meridian Hill is a black woman, Lynn is a white woman, Truman Held is also a black man. All of the three characters are the ones who work for the civil rights movement. One way or the other, they have the same mission, the upliftment of the black people. So that is how they get to know each other, they get acquainted with each other. So at the beginning of the novel, it's actually a flashback. Hmm. The opening scene is that at Chicokema in Georgia, there is a circus show at Chicokema, Georgia, and the highlight of the show is that Merlin O'Shea, a dead woman preserved in lifelike condition, is exhibited. ഒരു മരണപ്പെട്ട സ്ത്രീയെ ലൈഫ് ലൈക്ക് സിറ്റുവേഷനിൽ പ്രിസർവ് ചെയ്ത് വെച്ചിരിക്കുന്നതാണ് ഈ ഒരു സർക്കസ് ഷോയുടെ ഹൈലൈറ്റ്. So there are many black children who were denied entry. അവർക്ക് usual white people കയറുന്ന പോലെ കയറാനുള്ള entry was being prevented. So we see Meridian leading these black people to the show, and Truman meets Meridian. So there, from there, this is the beginning of the novel, and the novel proceeds as a flashback with a third person narration. And we get to know Meridian, she has a troubled relationship with her mother. She's very emotionally detached. She craves for love and guidance, but she has her trust issues. That is, she is unsure of God's existence. She doesn't believe in Jesus. So this creates a rift between herself and her mother, and she turns to civil rights movement by one way or the other. She gets pregnant from a person called Eddie, Eddie, and she delivers a baby boy whom she calls Eddie Jr. Unlike what is expected of a mother, the conventional motherhood dictates that soon after bearing children, one has to limit her life. A mother has to limit her life to taking care of the children. So unlike what the conventional motherhood dictates, or unlike other black women whose life is doomed after bearing children, Meridian, she hands over her child to a caretaker and she continues to study. She gets admission at a famous college called uh, Atlanta Saxon College. And earlier too, she was involved in a black revolutionary organization in New York City, but the activists, they wanted her to kill people. She refused to murder and she left the group. So she was passionate about service. She wanted to uplift the black community. That is why she joined a revolutionary organization. But they demanded her to kill people. They wanted her to murder. So because of this difference in ideology, she left the group. But she was always passionate about working for black people. Then what happens is she gets into the college and we get to know many instances in which uh, she gets acquainted with many people. One such instance is about a girl, yeah, a young girl called Wild Child. She's called Wild Child. Speed പറയുമ്പോൾ wild child എന്നല്ലേ പറയുന്നത്. So she is called by others as Wild Child, but actually her name is Wild Child. Just as the name denotes, she is an orphan, a black teenager who gets pregnant, and we get to know that she used to scavenge for food. She goes to garbage cans for food. So she's leading a pathetic life. Meridian, she tries her best to bring her back to a good life with good living conditions, but she runs away and gets hit by a car. She's pregnant and she gets hit by a car and she dies. So this comes out as a shock to Meridian. And she has a friend called Anne Marion, Anne. Marion. So both of them they carry her dead body for the funeral, but the college authorities they deny entry. And what they do at night is they protest and chop down the sojourner. The sojourner is actually school's iconic magnolia tree. ആ ഒരു ക്യാമ്പസിന്റെ നടുക്ക് അവരുടെ ഒരു പ്രൈഡ് ആയിട്ട് നിൽക്കുന്ന ഏറ്റവും വലിയ മെഗ്നോളിയ ട്രീ ആണ് the sojourner and it has a history. So the largest magnolia tree in the campus where the classes were held. This tree was there at the center of the campus. A podium and platform had been built into its lower branches where classes were held. The story goes that the sojourner had been planted by a slave on the Saxon plantation. Later, this plantation became a college, Saxon College. So the slave's name is Luini. What happens is later her tongue was clipped out at the root. Being a slave, being oppressed by various sorts of harassments, her tongue was clipped out. So, and she buries her tongue under this magnolia tree. So there is a history behind this sojourner, the magnolia tree. So you could see how this story it denotes the fate of every slave, every Afro-American, uh, I mean every black man, black woman has undergone the same fate without one's tongue. Hmm? Does all the works but is remaining voiceless. So other slaves they believe that this tree possesses magic. It could talk, it could make music, and it's even said once a hiding slave could not be seen. He got lost in the magnolia tree, the sojourner. The wild child too symbolizes the fate of every black woman hmm, who is doubly or triply oppressed. Sojourner also symbolizes the oppression faced by the blacks for years. Like the tree, it is standing out tall and magnificently. The tree stands as the symbol of the oppression suffered by the blacks for centuries. So by cutting it down, the reason is the body of the wild child was not taken into they were not given permission to be buried inside the campus. So what they did is Meridian and her friend Aunt Marion cut down the tree. It represents protest or the fight against the oppression they suffered silently till now. So they represent the protest of the entire black community. And another story that we get to know is about Meridian. She's always sick, and at times we get to know this illness is inherited. She falls down unconscious. There is hair loss. She gets paralyzed. She goes blind. So there is a story behind this too. This illness, it actually represents the deep emotional or spiritual lands that she and her forefathers had suffered. It could mean the burden that she suffered as a black woman is being represented physically. And she also believes this is a performing penance for the wrongs she has done. So ഇതുവരെ അടിച്ചമർത്തപ്പെട്ട ഈ ഒരു ബ്ലാക്ക് കമ്മ്യൂണിറ്റിയിൽ മിണ്ടാതെ ഇരുന്നത് കൊണ്ടുള്ള ഇഷ്യൂസ് ആവാം അല്ലെങ്കിൽ അതിനുള്ള ഒരു പ്രായശ്ചിത്തമാകാം ഈ ഒരു എന്താ physical illness. That is what she believes. So the story behind this is there is a serpent-shaped mound, is 60 acres of farmland which her father possessed. Hmm. It actually belonged to the Indians, and we get to know there is a serpent-shaped mound which included a pitch in the shape of a serpent's tail. നമ്മൾ കാവ് സർപ്പക്കാവ് എന്നൊക്കെ പറയുന്ന പോലെ there was this serpent-shaped mound where the ancients ഇതൊരു burial mound ആണ് പലരെയും മരിച്ചവരെ അടക്കിയിരിക്കുന്ന ഒരു Indian burial mound of the sacred. So this 60 acres of farmland, it has been handed over to Walter Longknife, Meridian's father, signs the deal, legal document handing over the 60 acres of land, which included the serpent-shaped mound of pitch. It actually refers to the um, ancient property hmm, where it was a burial mound for the Indians. And Meridian's great grandmother, her name is Heather May. She strives hard to protect this space, and she once goes to the pitch. വലിയൊരു 40 അടി താഴ്ചയുള്ള 40 feet deep ഉള്ള ഒരു പിറ്റാണ്. And she actually falls down there unconscious. She undergoes a swooning and she lies there unconscious. After getting up, she undergoes a transformation. Like she renounced church, she began to walk naked. പല പല ചേഞ്ചസും സംഭവിച്ചു after uh, being unconscious at the pitch. So what happens is Meridian, she also shares this peculiar madness of her great grandmother. That is what she believes. She also gets unconscious. She also gets blind. അല്ലെ ഇതുപോലെ സംഭവിച്ച പോലെ ബോധം മറയുകയും അങ്ങനെയുള്ള she turns blind, paralyzed. So she believes this is the peculiar madness that she shares with her great grandmother, Shedder May. What happened to her at the serpent-shaped mound is what she carries on all through her life. So this is something, this illness is something that connects her to the past. That is what she believes. So what happens to Meridian is that she gets pregnant, she delivers a baby boy, and then she actually renounces her boy and goes on to work for the Black community. Meridian, uh, she gets acquainted with True Man Held, who also work for the civil rights. Meridian gets pregnant out of this relation with True Man Held, but she keeps this as a secret and she goes for an abortion. By the meantime, Truman, he never understands or realizes that Meridian has delivered his child. He's actually ignorant of this uh, whole scenario. He goes and marries Lynn, who is a white woman, who is also a worker for the Black People's Cause, and they have a child called Kamara. Kamara Laye is actually a Black writer, a writer from Guinea. So Kamara Laye, uh, getting inspired from this writer, they named the child Kamara. During the course of the event, Kamara gets attacked by a man and she is killed. So already Truman and Lynn's relation is drifting apart. They have a strained relation. It's drifting apart. And we get to know that Lynn is being raped by Truman's friend called Tommy Oates. So Tommy Oates, uh, Truman and Lynn, they were actually friends. But Tommy Oates was attacked by other people and he loses his one arm. So he believes that it was because of his friendship with Lynn that he was attacked. So Lynn actually becomes a scapegoat just because she is white. So the sufferings of the blacks for centuries. Tommy Oates, she accuses Lynn. This rape is actually a revenge for his entire community. And he also calls on his other black friends to rape her. So Lynn is actually made a scapegoat. So Truman, when he gets to know that his wife is being raped by Tommy Oates and others, she questions Tommy Oates, and Tommy Oates, he says actually she never uh, resisted the rape. So in a way, Tommy Oates convinces Truman that Lynn was actually it was with her consent that they made love. It was actually a sort of a rape. So Lynn, she's actually carried over by the guilt uh, that the white people have been oppressing the blacks for centuries. So it is this sort of guilt that caused Lynn not to resist, but she's actually made a scapegoat. And Truman, he becomes an artist and leaves his activism and goes away from this place. But Meridian, she continues her work. Her actual work was she goes from home to home, registering black folks to vote. ഈ വോട്ടിംഗ് റൈറ്റ്സിന് വേണ്ടിയുള്ള പോരാട്ടമാണ്. ഓരോ വീടുകളും കയറി ഇറങ്ങി she gets the she wants to increase the number of black folks on the voters list. Voters ലിസ്റ്റിൽ black പീപ്പിളിന്റെ നെയിം രജിസ്റ്റർ ചെയ്യുക എന്നുള്ളതാണ് മെറിഡിയന്റെ ഇപ്പോഴത്തെ ഏറ്റവും ഇമ്പോർട്ടന്റ് ആയിട്ടുള്ള ഒരു ദൗത്യമായിട്ട് ഏറ്റെടുത്തിരിക്കുന്നത്. So Meridian knocks on the doors of the deprived. We get to know the stories of people who kill the land, who preaches sermons. പല പല മോശം സിറ്റുവേഷനിലൂടെ കടന്നു പോകുന്ന ഓരോ ബ്ലാക്ക് മാനിന്റെയും കഥകളാണ് പിന്നെ അങ്ങോട്ട് നമ്മൾ കാണുന്നത്. സോ at we are living in the 21st century where we have Barack Obama as the first Afro-American president of America. So we get to know the whole history or the evolution of the privileges being uh, faced or being how they have achieved such privileges, how difficult it was for the colored people even to get the voting rights. So even now, black folks they are fighting for their denied rights, many rights that have been denied for them. But uh, we get to know how hard, how such people, how selflessly they have worked hard to get the voting rights for the black people. Okay. So towards the end of the novel, we get to know that true man uh, meets Meridian, and Meridian lives true man, telling she's out into the world with many other missions on her own. They Truman and Lim. Truman gets separated from his legally married. That is why Lim they get separated. Truman comes back to Meridian. Meridian is determined to stay alone. She is determined to improve the lives of those around her. Though she is very weak physically, she has many ailments. Even when her own personal life, she has lost everything. It's sort of a tragedy that has happened in her personal life. But she discovers herself, her life mission. She goes out to the world to work for her community, for the blacks. And the final chapter, Truman is left alone in her room. They kiss each other, bidding goodbye, and Meridian leaves. Truman reads the poem Meridian has pasted or written on the walls of her room, and he faints. So Meridian has been going unconscious every time, but now it is Truman who falls down unconscious, and on waking up, he realizes that the mission taken up by Meridian should be carried out by each of them forward. So it is at that note that the novel ends. It is at that note that the novel ends.